Good morning and welcome to the 9:30 call here on January 8th. It's great to see folks. We'll give a minute for folks to join and we'll just do you have, Megan and Pia, do you have slides?
I do. Yep.
Okay, great. So you should be able to share your screen. Good morning as folks are joining. The Strategies for Children team is coming together today and tomorrow in person for a strategic planning session, which we're really excited about with Rhonda Alexander, who will be leading us through this process. We posted a blog, which I'll put in chat today, just to kind of give a preview of what we're thinking about for this year at Strategies. We're excited to kind of dig in over the next 2 days. We did a strategic plan in 2021 that's kind of took us to the end of 2024. So we're excited to be together today in person to kind of update that plan. And one of the things we've been talking about is oh my God, I somehow did something to my screen. We're going to create an advocacy headquarters on our website, which we're so excited about. So stay tuned for more information about that. And yesterday there was an
There was an
incredible event at the State House. I see some folks who were there yesterday, the United Way and the Early Childhood Funder Collaborative, in a packed room 428 with many new legislators coming and a ton of 9:30 callers were there. So it was great to see everybody in person and great to see hear more about family childcare. Melinda Weber did an incredible overview. There was a panel discussion. So congratulations to an incredible event at the State House. So Pia and Megan, I'll turn things over to you. The first question for all 9:30 callers is for each of you to tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be in your current role. And I think Pia, you're going to give us an update on the report.
Yeah, thank you. It is my first time presenting on the 9:30 call, but it is not my first time on the 9:30
Yes.
call. So I've
So
learned
long time listener, first time presenter.
exactly,
We
exact. So
love
I'm
it.
I'm happy to be able to share some, having learned from so many of you in the past. So I am Pia Caronongan. I'm a research associate professor at the Wheelock Educational Policy Center, or WEPIC, as we like to call it. WEPIC is a center at BU's Wheelock College of Education and Human Development that conducts research in partnership with local, state, and federal policymakers. Prior to my current role, I spent almost 15 years at a research organization called Mathematica, where I worked on large early childhood projects, mostly for the federal government, particularly the Administration for Children and Families at the Department of Health and Human Services. And most of my work at Mathematica focused on ways to improve early care and education access and quality over time, as you might imagine, over a 15-year period, that focused on a range of different policy levers, including quality rating and improvement systems, other types of quality improvement strategies, and more recently focused on workforce development initiatives. But a lot of the work we did on those projects involved studying what states were doing and how. And so in doing that work, I learned a lot about innovations that are born at the state and local levels, but also about many implementation challenges that can impede success. So often there are decisions to be made in the course of taking a policy into action that that could be informed by data, but often the data aren't available or there's not enough capacity to collect or use the data. So partnering with policymakers and administrators to help better use data and generate evidence to inform their work is a space that WEPIC really tries to fill. And so the opportunity to do more of that is what drew me to my current role. So that's my story. I was ready for it, Amy. See,
Thank you.
that's
It's great to hear.
but that might be a good segue to the paper. Um, So let me share my screen.
And while you're doing that, maybe Megan, if you can just say hello and introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. Pia did such a beautiful job describing what we do here at Boston University's Policy Center. But just a quick background. I'm Megan Combe. I'm the executive director of the Policy Center. And that means that I sit at kind of the intersection of our research, resources, faculty, and capacity in service of kind of the work that we do with policymakers. And I come to that work having worked most recently for 8 years previously at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And when I left there, I was the director of educator effectiveness. So lots of focus around teacher preparation, the pipeline, all kind of workforce related supporting teacher initiatives. Prior to that, I was an elementary teacher, and I'm also the mom of three young boys who are in various states of engagement with our systems. So I bring all those hats with me into this work, and we're so thrilled to have Pia here joining us. Pia, so that you know, we're seeing your full presentation mode, not just your slides.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Is it better now?
Nope.
Not yet.
There you go.
This is the hardest part of the 9:30 call, no matter who you are and how long you've been on Zoom, getting the slides up. So we're
Yeah,
good to go.
perfect. All right, so let's dive in here, just motivating the paper a little bit. There's a lot of discussion nationally about the challenges faced by the early educator workforce. I know there's been a lot of discussion on this call about this and how best to support them. And separately or alongside that, calling for more and better data and research. So Megan and I wrote a paper to more specifically consider what that means for building data and research capacity in Massachusetts in particular. So I'll start with a brief stock take, and I acknowledge that I probably don't have to spell this out for many or everyone on this call, but it helps just to set a foundation and again, reminding us of the motivation for this work. We know that early educators face challenging economic prospects. That's true nationally as well as here in Massachusetts. Although prospects have improved some since the pandemic, in that wages have grown, they have grown less compared to other occupations, and they are still not at the level that they need to be. So, as a result, turnover issues remain and are pervasive. About a quarter of educators leave each year. Many of those who leave the field entirely. And we know this from national data. This was true, about a decade ago, and it remains true today. About a quarter to a third of centers, depending on when you look, have high turnover rates with 20% or more of teachers leaving each year. So given all the challenges, there's general consensus that strategies to support the educator workforce need to attend to multiple dimensions of educators' experiences. That includes supporting their economic well-being, their physical and psychological well-being, but also providing opportunities to build important competencies and facilitate career progression, as well as enabling a supportive work environment. Here in Massachusetts, the state has taken on a multi-pronged approach to these issues with various investments and initiatives currently in place. This slide lists just some of those investments. I acknowledge it doesn't even list everything that's in progress, but this gives you a good flavor of just the range of different supports. However, there are key questions about the educator workforce and those investments that we don't have answers to. The first set of questions relates to what is working. Who is in the workforce and what are their competencies and skills? Who is accessing the different workforce supports that are available? And how are the supports affecting the recruitment, retention, and career progression of early educators? A second set of questions relates to how we can make it better. Are there barriers to accessing the available supports? How do the outcomes differ for educators with different qualifications and backgrounds? And how do staffing levels and turnover differ by different program characteristics? And then a third set of questions relates to what else is needed. So given what is currently in place, is there a robust pipeline to ensure that the supply of educators aligns with demand? And how can new entrants to the workforce be supported to ensure their development and advancement? So there are some existing data sources that can provide some information, both at the educator and program levels. This slide lists some of the existing data systems that are currently in place, but we know there are limitations to these data, both in terms of coverage. Not all educators are included, for example, and some records are out of date, and the extent to which we can link educator level data with data about the programs that they are in. Then there are also data from other agencies outside of the Department of Early Education and Care that could potentially help answer some of these questions. However, accessing those data require data sharing agreements, not all of which are currently in place. So the question really is, how can we move from the data we have to the data that we need? And we identified a few key strategies based on our review of what exists and also scanning successful approaches and best practices identified by others in the field. So the first strategy really is that it's really important to minimize the burden on educators in data collection and also show them how the data that they provide can be used to improve their experiences. Next is that the data need to be as comprehensive as possible. And that means including as much of the workforce as possible, or at the very least, understanding who might be missing, and also capturing change over time. Third, given what we know about how the workforce changes so much over time, having the ability to conduct ongoing real-time analysis is useful and really crucial, which means it's helpful to collect data to the extent possible via administrative data systems rather than through one-time studies or surveys. Now, EEC is actually building a new integrated educator portal that aims to address these first 3 points, which is a really great step forward. There are 2 other strategies that we identified to complement these first 3. The first is really capitalizing on existing data systems. So the new educator portal in development aims to integrate and improve upon most of the existing educator level data systems that I had listed on that earlier slide, and envisions linking educator level data to program level data. But it really is worth exploring how data from other agencies can complement or supplement what's in the portal or what will be in the portal, which can help inform thinking around, what needs to be collected directly through the portal versus capitalizing on what already exists elsewhere. And in the paper, we describe some examples of other states where these strategies have been used successfully. One of the examples we describe is from Illinois, where researchers used existing data from the state unemployment insurance program to look at early educator wages over a 15-year period, so from 2006 to 2021. And in addition to looking at wages, they were able to look at where educators come from before entering the field and where they go when they leave. So using an existing data source in this way helped to minimize the burden on educators' programs and state agencies. And also the data provided more detail than they otherwise would have been able to get at the individual educator level. So really, this is just an example of how understanding what other data exists can help reduce duplication of efforts and help inform decisions about where and how to focus data collection efforts. And then finally, the last strategy we talk about is continuing to build capacity for measurement, data management, and analysis. And this means planning not just for the collection of data, but also planning for what you do with the data once it's collected. How can you turn the data that's collected into metrics that really help answer those priority questions about the workforce? And also, it means thinking about whether there are additional metrics that we might need to track on an ongoing basis and developing ways to create those measures and a plan for collecting them. So this type of capacity for this type of work doesn't always exist in-house. And so in the paper, we also talk about what other states have done to extend their capacity. For example, in states like Virginia and Colorado, where states have built partnerships with various organizations to help extend their capacity in various ways. So research partners, for example, can help with measurement and analysis, particularly for new metrics. And then community partners can help in understanding challenges related to the data, promoting participation of both educators and programs, and also help in making sense of the data itself.
Yeah, there is a question in chat about, and you may have said this, but is this data specific to center-based educators, or does it include FCC educators and programs?
Do you know which data? Was it the unemployment insurance, maybe, Amy?
It may have been even just like the first, as you're looking at this in Massachusetts, you're looking at the whole field, is that right?
Yes, we are. And so some of the data that exists covers only parts of the field,
Right.
but we do think the goal is to be as comprehensive as possible and
Great.
include
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah.
And then
Uh,
somebody messaged me for the link, which I added back to chat.
Thank
So,
you.
all good. Keep going.
Thank you. Okay, I think this is my last slide just to say that we at WEPIC are excited to embark on at least some of this work through a current partnership with EEC. Our partnership is focused on building data and research capacity through through a set of key tasks, including assessing the existing data, which you kind of saw a start to that here, identifying gaps in the workforce information that's available, examining how existing data systems and data collection approaches could be improved to better answer questions about the workforce, and then developing ways or beginning to develop ways to measure and analyze workforce outcomes or activities that are not currently being captured. And we're grateful that this work is partially supported by a grant from the Administration for Children and Families. But, so we hope to definitely come back and share more about this work as it progresses. But I'll just note that this QR code on this slide will take you to more information about our partnership, the full paper, which includes other examples like the ones that I shared today. But I'll stop there, one, so I can see everyone again, because I can't see anyone right now, and also to hear any questions or reactions that you might have.
And
Sure. And we know you'll send us the slides, which we'll post on the follow-up folder, and we'll also post the video that we're recording right now. So
Amy,
let me make sure let me look at the chat. Okay, here we go. Edna, the feedback from my family child care providers, as highlighted by Jacques and Melinda during yesterday's event at the State House, emphasizes the importance of access to personal insurance and retirement benefits other than housing. as key areas of concern. Addressing these challenges with effective solutions will undoubtedly help retain family child care providers in the field and even attract more individuals to join. It is truly gratifying to see all the hard work being done to gather and analyze this valuable information. Yes, it would also be incredibly helpful to gather even more data about family child care providers to further the efforts and guide the efforts. I know you were not too long. Don't apologize. Um, so I guess many of us have been doing this work for a long time. It's really hard to get this kind of data. Can you talk a little bit about like what you can forecast as potential policy solutions or how we can help you? I know that there's folks from EEC on the call this morning um, as well, but I think this is, when you think about the structures like a registry or just even how we're reporting these data. So can you talk maybe a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just say from what I know of the new educator portal that's envisioned, which really aims to improve upon what currently exists. And it really is taking a lens of understanding the user experience, I think, in terms of accessing the data and really hoping to make it more user friendly. From what I do think that aims to improve upon like that is a big that's the first thing I listed on that slide in terms of
Right.
minimizing the burden and helping to make it just easier and less confusing. But I don't know if I know Jocelyn is here. Jocelyn, I don't know if you want to weigh in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I also want to clarify there are actually two different processes. So Pia just described the goal for the educator portal is that it's useful for educators, and we're
Right.
not collecting a lot of extra information just because we want it. It's the information that is in there is the information that educators need to understand, sort of where they will fit in the credential and how they're advancing and document all the things that they need to keep records of, and would also want to share with their programs and, support everybody in understanding who they are as a professional. The link to the program will be really important when we get there. That supports our ability to use the educator data without asking anything additional of educators to understand where educators are working, how they're moving through their profession. But at the same time, Pia also talked about other data sources that we could use. So there's a lot of work we can do on the back end to take the data from these different systems. Our internal systems ideally would be linked, but we can also then work on linking with other data sources as we can get access to them. And that's the analytics side, which really should be invisible to anybody using the system, but something that we can do ourselves.
Thanks,
And
Jocelyn. Thanks for jumping in, Megan.
Amy, if I could just add, I think even taking one step back, part of the reason we decided to pull this white paper together was because in our conversations with EEC and kind of doing our own landscape scan about what we do currently know and where there are gaps that we could be supportive in filling, we realized that I don't think we're saying anything to this group that you all have not known.
Right.
We're
Or
not
lived.
not mirroring the studies or the surveys that like you have long voiced over. I think what we saw was an opportunity like from a political moment in time to kind of put a stake in the ground about why the data infrastructure and research in intensive effort at scale, right, to understand kind of this aggregate longitudinal challenge would also be really important in informing the task force conversations and informing legislators' decisions around budget investments, things like that. So we felt like maybe we're not saying anything necessarily new or novel, particularly for those of you that have been leading this charge for so long, but that trying to encapsulate some of that with a really clear point about why this would be so important from a policymaking decision and space felt like something that was timely in the moment. And that I think that was part, I think, to your original question, Amy, about why we wanted to get it out there was because our hope is that it can be helpful in more advocacy, in more policy making, if we're intentional about the way that we're setting up these data and evaluation efforts.
There's another question. Thank you for this. I wonder how you'll think of the principle of reducing burden on educators to obtain data about them and use administrative data for ongoing analysis. Are those potentially in conflict? The administrative data has to originate with someone or some entity providing it, right? So it's a little bit of what Jocelyn talked about too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I was partially answering this question when I was
Right.
responding,
Talking.
and that it's thinking carefully about the systems that we're developing and the purpose of the system from the perspective of those using the system, but then also thinking about how we can work across the data that we have to do the analysis that we need to do. But I mean, I will certainly say, one thing that we've seen in the current PQR and that we would like to correct is there are a lot of questions with very long drop-down menus, for example, that aren't necessarily obvious to the educator as to why you would
Right.
be answering these questions. And that's something that we would like to fix in the new system. The purposes of it should be clear. And if there is any additional information that we do ask, which, there might be small amounts, but we would make it clear and be very transparent about why we were asking any question.
Michelle wonders, are we going to do the similar thing to Illinois and get the data about where staff go when they leave the industry? Does that also include why they are leaving, like if it is unhappy with the job or to get better pay and benefits?
It's a good idea.
Yeah, no, was going to say that would be wonderful. And that speaks to that it requires a data sharing agreement
Right.
to be able to access that data. We do think that would be a really wonderful thing to be able to do, but there's not currently an agreement in place to do that yet.
Thank you for sharing. It was interesting to meet. I was interested to meet Pia and Megan. We are interested in new partnerships and we provide. So that's from you can see that chat about connecting. And just I'm so glad to have folks from EEC on Jocelyn, especially to kind of give us some real-time connection. So thank you for that. And I just also want to appreciate kind of like highlighting this work. And as you said, maybe we all know it, but we've been talking a lot about implementation advocacy and data advocacy is just as important and how we get that data and how that helps connect us to what we want. We've been having many discussions over the past couple of weeks about the wait list and understanding like the wait list and what that means. And the first question we would get from legislators is, okay, if are there spaces for children to go if we open up the wait list? And having that kind of data is critical as well. So just really want to appreciate the work that you're doing and for joining us on the call. Pia and Megan, I'll give you the last word. Any other things you want to share this morning?
Thank you for having us on. Thank you for the great comments. Amy, you said you'll send us the chat, right? Because I don't
I'll
know
send you
that
the
I caught
chat. Yeah,
everything.
I'll
Thank
send you
you
the chat.
very much. And like I said, we please do reach out if anyone has other follow-up ideas related to this. We're always happy to chat more about it. But we also hope to come back on
Yeah, please,
and share more
anytime.
as things progress.
I think the other thing I just want to know is we had 80 people on a high note, right? So to have 80 people show up to hear about research is exciting. So
Very.
hope everybody has a good day. We will be back here tomorrow and we're going to hear from Marissa and Latoya from Neighborhood Villages, Marissa from Strategies. They're going to kind of recap the event we did and thinking about the budget, not what the budget line items necessarily say, but what they mean to people and is it making a difference right now since we're halfway through this fiscal year. All right, so we'll see everyone tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks all.
Come on.